when you're playing at a private school, playing a bunch of private schools, suburban kids. I've seen kids at the high school and even collegiate level. Oh, I look out here and 70% of these kids are black kids. And of that 70%, they're from the hood black kids. And they wet their pants. It's like playing out there in suburban basketball and blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, you're out there playing with a bunch of black dudes tatted up. You're playing against a bunch of city kids. I've seen that bring out the best in some suburban kids, and I've seen it bring out the worst in some suburban kids. Let's move on to our guy, Steve Kim. And Steve, I want to start with Arch Manning and something that Danny Cannell had to say about Arch Manning that I found fascinating. Let's play the clip.
There's almost like a Markelle Fultz, Ben Simmons. There's almost like a Markelle Fultz, Ben Simmons.
She abruptly
something
resigned
going on
as the
where
host
those guys
of the show.
were all everything. They were supposed to be. There's almost like a Markelle Fultz, Ben Simmons something going on where those guys were all everything. They were supposed to be incredible. And then something happened, and it's mostly mental, where I was wondering how Arch Manning would handle the hysteria that was around him. And he downplayed everything. But to me, this is very much a quarterback, which his confidence is completely shot. And I feel like it's impacting his mechanics, which is the similarity I would compare to both of those guys. Because at one time, their mechanics looked good. At one time, they could make the shots. We've seen Arch make all the throws. And even there were times in that game when he had a couple of nice throws, but there are way too many stretches where it is as Sark was trying to get his confidence up by calling easy routes, quick hitches, crossing routes, and he was missing them. There is something, this is a greater problem that Sark has 1 week to figure out. And I don't know if you can solve it in 1 week. He has got to get Arch to play more free.
Steve, I think that's fascinating. And particularly when I think about Steve Sarkisian, when he was asked about Arch grimacing when he threw, and he was like, who said that? Did Arch tell you that? And the guy said, no, you can just kind of see it. It sounds to me like Steve Sarkisian knows that this is between the ears more than it is anything physical with Arch Manning.
Yeah, Jason, I go back about, 5-6 weeks ago, SEC Media Day. So I'm watching it, and it's amazing the reception that Arch got as he walked in. I mean, he got treated like the Beatles, Michael Jackson, and Tim Tebow after he won the Heisman. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy has started 2 games. And whether he has the yips now or not, that's something we don't know psychologically. But Jason, here's the bad part, and I do feel bad for Arch. In the middle of that 0 for 10 stretch against UTEP, he heard boos. So at this point now, the golden child has now become almost like this symbol for why aren't we dominating? I mean, think about this, Jason. Not only was Arch Manning listed among the top 3 quarterbacks, top 3 overall players, Texas was rated no worse than the second best team in the country. And now you get the sense they're going to lose a few games here. They have Sam Houston coming up. Then they get to the heart of the SEC. This is the reality, Jason. Whatever is broken with Arch Manning cannot be fixed till the offseason, if ever.
What do you think about Cannell's theory, though, that he's Ben Simmons? Because Ben Simmons had a lot of talent, and it does seem like the pressure, the hype, the anxiety he hasn't been able to handle, and he's never been able to fix his offensive game. I've never seen it applied to football, but I think Danny Cannell may be on to something.
Maybe, but at least Ben Simmons, I know he spent 1 year at LSU, and we all knew he did not want to pull the trigger on jump shots. At least he was kind of good, though. I mean, they didn't make the tournament, but he showed enough that you thought, okay, this could be a bigger version of Jason Kidd, and he could develop some sort of shot from the perimeter that would keep teams honest. It never happened. And then it turned out the guy had no work ethic, didn't want to play. I think that's a different set of issues. Problem with Arch was I've talked to people that work in the recruiting field for college football. They had questions about Arch Manning's level of competition in New Orleans. He did not play that many other Division I athletes, and there was a belief, no one was really allowed to say it for whatever reason, that if his name was Arch Smith, he basically would have been your normal everyday 4-star. That being a Manning in football is like being a Kennedy in politics. It means something. But Arch Manning, when I look at him, I've talked to some people like Coach JB, and I said, Coach, do you think there's something wrong with this throwing motion? He actually does think that there's an issue with the shoulder or pec area. Kurt Benkert, who spent 5 years in the National Football League, he now is a football content creator. He said after the first game, he came out and he said very boldly, I think there's something physically wrong with Arch Manning. So, Jason, I have a question for you. Do you think the way Sarkisian reacted to that question last week, where he said, well, I don't know what type of faces you make while you're on the can, I don't know if that answer actually helped Arch.
No, but it to me, it answered the question. Steve Sarkisian doesn't think it's physical. You know, because if it's physical, I don't think the Mannings let him go out there and play. And this is where I think I'm going to say it more impolitely, or maybe this is what Danny hadn't considered and thought of as it relates to this mental hiccup. When you're playing at a private school, playing a bunch of private schools, suburban kids, I've seen kids at the high school and even collegiate level, oh, I look out here and 70% of these kids are black kids, and of that 70%, they're from the hood, black kids, and they wet their pants. It's like playing out there in suburban basketball and blah, 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 and the next thing you know, you're out there playing with a bunch of black dudes tatted up. You're playing against a bunch of city kids. I've seen that bring out the best in some suburban kids, and I've seen it bring out the worst in some suburban kids.
Yeah, that's the story of Larry Bird. They said the reason why Larry Bird was so good is that I believe that when he was growing up, he used to play with a lot of older black men at one of the jobs he had. And in the beginning, It was tough, but he understood one thing. I better learn how to arc my shot. I better learn how to fade away, and I better make great usage of ball fakes because I'm not really that fast. But it said it advanced his game. And he was probably the one guy that was never intimidated by black players by the time he got to college and to the NBA. I think there's a theory to be said because, look, I've watched some Arch Manning highlights when he was at Newman. A lot of Asian kids. A lot of Asian kids, Jason. A lot of poor little Timmies, as Coach Hayes would say. Poor little Timmies.
If you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss a moment of Fearless.